G'day, I'm Dante St. James. Apologies for the terrible internet connection I had in Nhulunbuy, but I'm back at home base now. I can record so much better and get so much better done. So, without further ado, I'm going to get on with this presentation, which we're talking about what's working on social media in 2023. A little bit about I guess myself and what we're going to get up to is that I'm a Workforce Australia self-employment services provider in that I work with Business Station as an entrepreneurship facilitator. That just means I help people start their businesses. Work with LinkedIn local in Darwin. I'm a certified Meta lead trainer. Tend to go around Australia and do a bit of training for them as well, and many other things. My own businesses include ClickStarter and SpeakStarter, my digital agency and public speaking training organization as well. So what I'm basically doing today is going to take you through the things that are tending to work better on social media these days. That not the same stuff that was working maybe 5 years ago, but the stuff that's working better for you today. So as we continue on, look at today, we're going to look at what's working on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok and Twitter. So those particular platforms I've chosen because they're the biggest ones. They tend to have the most interest in people today. There's one missing there that was a question that was given to us as part of the presentation that failed, which was Pinterest. Am I going to look at Pinterest? And the reason I'm not going to look at Pinterest is simply because Pinterest is going through a bit of a change at the moment. Now, about a year ago, Pinterest was like almost guaranteed to be a great place to generate lots of traffic to your website, particularly if you're selling so a very visual business, wedding planners, interior designers, those kind of things. People selling kids' goods, kids' wear, fashion, that sort of thing. Something happened in this last year, which Pinterest is going through at the moment, which is they're not generating as much traffic anymore. In fact, there's a drop of over 90% generally in the kind of traffic that's sort of sent through to them. So we're still trying to work out what it is that works best on Pinterest or not. We've got some ideas that it may be video, but they're tending to pull back from that short format video now. So it could be something else. So that's the reason why we're not specifically looking at Pinterest today. Continuing on. So change isn't always fair, but it does happen. And how you adapt to it is what matters most. And that's the message I've got for you in social media today is that your ability to change is what is going to be the difference between yourself and others. Others will look at it and just get caught up in the change and they get swept away from it. But if you're ready for what changes, what works now, you're going to do so much better. But I will start with this one mic drop moment that in 2023, social media isn't necessarily the best place for every single person to be in. Some businesses are just not made for social media. They're not very good at it. They're very good at in-person stuff. Some of those might be training businesses that are not so good at social media, but very good when they're doing one-to-one in front of people. Or if you're a coach, for instance, a lot of coaches prefer that one-to-one thing. They don't really do well on social media. They may be quite introverted than that. So that might be the reason. But the reality is that not every business is made to be on social media. Some of them are going to do really well on it. Some of them are not going to do so great at it. It just depends on the kind of business you are and what kind of things you do in that business. For a lot of small businesses, though, we find that referrals are now the number one source of new business. Word of mouth, essentially. So when people who you've worked with previously are telling new people all about you, or if there could be people who have heard about you, they've heard your reputation, and they choose to pass that on to you. So I guess that's where a lot of my business comes from these days. I've done a lot of the hard work on social media in my early days, still doing quite a bit of social media work, particularly on LinkedIn. But the majority of the things that come in are either, if they're not from those channels that I'm investing my time and money and effort into, it's coming through recommendations for people. A government department was referred to me by another government department, or a training organization was referred to me by a fellow training organization. So that's generally what happens in a lot of our businesses now, that for a lot of us, referrals, that word of mouth is always going to be the number one thing, which makes us very, very, I guess, skeptical about social media. But if you decided to use your social media, where would the efforts be? Where are you best positioned to spend your time? Because you don't want to be wasting time on social media. Social media is one of those places where it can be a time sink. It can be like it's up to 2 hours a day on average that we're spending on social media in various forms, whether it's TikTok or YouTube or watching things through those, or going and looking at our Facebook feeds and LinkedIn feeds. We do spend a lot of time on there. So we want to make sure that that time is actually going to be worth our time if we're doing the right thing. So we're going to start start off first of all with Facebook. Facebook is the big elephant in the room, the big pink elephant in the room. It's the biggest by far, 3 billion uh, monthly active users. Everyone keeps saying that Facebook's dying, but the reality is it's just the use of Facebook has changed. Whereas before we used to be very much in the feed and consuming what was in the feed. These days we're so much going into groups and into reels, and that's kind of where things really start with us. The first thing that we have to understand is that when you've got stories on Facebook, that really only less than 5% or around 5% of your followers are ever going to see what you post in stories. So you think, wow, if I've got 100 followers, that's 5 people who are going to see what's in my story. This is on average, of course. Some of us perform better than others, but it's still like this is the majority of people are not getting much out of the stories or the feed. In the feed, posts are reaching less than 1% of your followers. So it's less than one person per 100 is going to be seeing what you're posting on the feed. Now, I will make this realistic though. This isn't from your profile. This is from your business page. So, for instance, your business page, which is all about your business, that's the stuff that's having trouble reaching people. I can post the exact same thing on my personal profile, and it goes way further than what it does on my business page. And that's because Facebook is geared for personal relationships between people, not relationships between businesses and people. So, businesses have to work that much harder and be that much luckier and that much more persistent in order to get what they need to get out of a platform like Facebook. So it's really hard to get organic reach on Facebook these days. In fact, some people find it's almost like it's impossible, but it's not. It just depends on what you're posting. For example, if you're posting a reel, now, Instagram and Facebook Reels are pretty much known on Facebook and Instagram as the only place now that you're going to reach people who are beyond your actual following. So, your actual following, I'm talking about the people who follow you. They may see, like, as we said, about 1% of them are going to see your posts on the feed. About 5% of them may see your stories on the story feed. But if you produce a reel doesn't just get in front of more of the people who follow you, it gets the chance of getting way beyond the people that follow you. And the reason is because reels are given a priority. Because Facebook knows that short format video is so popular right now and so much more preferred by people who are watching things on social media, then what they do, they make it so that there's a discovery algorithm, not just the regular algorithm on the feed. The discovery algorithm takes what you've produced in reels and says, okay, who out there beyond the people who are following that page might be interested in this particular reel. So that's the reason why reels get a lot further out, because they tend to be far more likely that people will be interested in them because they've got motion, they're quick, they're short, they're sharp, they're very, very not so well made, but they're just made to be attention grabbing. Like, you look at anything on here, every single one of these images is quite attention grabbing, and that's why we're talking about reels being the thing that really does go beyond what the regular feed will do. Secondly is pretty much paying for ads and groups. So groups are prioritized on feeds because they're highly relevant to people's interests. So I talked we were first getting started on this back when I was in Nhulunbuy, that that groups such as like the Kath and Kim Appreciation Society, I see a lot of their posts because I interact with a lot of their posts. When something comes up, I've usually got a quote to put in there or some sort of throwback to a line from a previous episode that I like to throw in there to show that I know what's going on with Kath and Kim. Or it could be like the Kmart Unhacks and Roasts group, which I follow as well. And that particular group is all about people who take regular items from Kmart and turn them into creations of their own. So turning a fruit basket into a light fitting, or taking curtains and turning them into a dress for their kids. It sounds like the plot from The Sound of Music. But that sort of thing where they take it and they don't do it well. And it's one of those groups where they don't shame the person. They just take the idea and then they sort of pick on it. It can be a little bit mean sometimes, I think, but I find it really entertaining because it's looking at a slice of life that I like. Kmart. I love Kmart, shop at Kmart quite regularly. A lot of the things I've got I can look in front of me right now, and 4 things in front of me are from Kmart. So it's one of those places where I've got a strong relationship to. And so therefore I've got a strong relationship to that group because it's all about stuff that I relate to. So groups are definitely going to get further along the feed because the content in them is far more interesting to a certain set of people. The danger is here though, you can't just create a group around your business because that's not an interesting group. People aren't necessarily interested in your business. They might be interested in what they can do through your business. So, for instance, a Kmart fan group would not be as effective as a Kmart hacks group, which is basically taking Kmart stuff and hacking it into something else. Those things tend to be really popular because it's not about Kmart, it's about the creativity of people. So that's a confusing thing that some people sometimes don't deal particularly well with because they think that they're going to build a group that's going to be around their business. But the reality is the group is whatever the members of the group choose for it to be. And you're not going to have a lot of control over that if you do decide to start up a group. And the other one, of course, is ads. So ads on Facebook are pretty much king. They're the only way to get in front of your full following and go beyond it with any kind of level of confidence. But it is going to cost you something. That's the problem with ads. It's not like it was years ago where you put $10 on it, 2 weeks, and you get 20,000 people looking at your thing. You'd sell a bunch of stuff and you'd be happy. That's back when Facebook was lucky to have had 1 billion people following it. Now it's like 3 billion. So it's a lot busier. There's a lot more ads. There's a lot more people competing. And you've got a lot of what happened about 5 years ago is that the corporates finally arrived and things got really expensive on Facebook because before that, it was really all us small businesses were on there. Then about 5 years ago, it would have been 2020, sort of 2018-ish that all of a sudden when the corporates arrived, so the Kmart's basically, and the West Farmers, Woolies, Bunnings, all those guys, they were buying such a huge chunk of the inventory on Facebook because it was relatively cheap that it drove us out a bit and they could outcompete us, outbid us, outrank us, and therefore get more ads in the feed than we do. So I think it's where people started to treat Facebook not as this cheap cousin of advertising, but just as valuable, in fact, more valuable than television. In fact, I can actually pay less on TV in my market of Darwin than what it costs me on Facebook these days because at the same kind of expectations of reach and frequency, Facebook's more expensive these days, which is just a shock for a lot of people, I think. So let's move on to Instagram. So Instagram, as you may or may not know, is owned by Facebook, and all the ads that are run through Instagram are actually run through Facebook. So you go to Facebook to do the ads in there. The other thing is too that Facebook and Instagram have come together in a thing called Business Suite. If you're not running your Facebook and Instagram profiles through there, you're missing out on a lot of really good things like scheduling of posts, the scheduling of stories. You can even put in reels on Facebook through Business Suite, and it's that unified inbox of all your messages and all of your comments from both Facebook and Instagram coming into this one place where you can manage them all in one place. So look at that as business.facebook.com. Now, talking about the specifics about Instagram when it comes to what's working there at the moment, no surprises, Reels again. Reels are pretty much short format video is pretty much what is working the best these days. On Instagram, they're called Reels. Facebook, they're called Reels. TikTok, they're just TikToks. YouTube, they're called Shorts, and I'll have a bit more about that a little bit later on. But when it comes down to it, what we're looking at is that short format video is going to reach beyond your existing followers much more frequently than what just regular feed posts and story posts will do. And as we explained before, that's simply because they have a broader interest. They're much more interesting to watch, to view, and they generally have, they're written to be reached. People are writing them very specifically that people will be reached that they don't normally reach. But it doesn't just stop there in here. It's also straight to ads as well. Pretty much that's the only thing that's working on Instagram to get beyond your reach these days is Reels and ads. And ads, as I said, are run through Facebook. So you'll need to run those through business.facebook.com or facebook.com/ads manager to be able to run ads through there. Now, the price of ads is these days a little more expensive on Instagram than what it is on Facebook. So if you do a combined Facebook, Instagram ad campaign, what will happen is by and large, ads will mostly show on Facebook unless you tell it don't show them on Facebook, only show them on Instagram. But they will be a little bit more cost per click wise. It's going to be a bit more what they call CPM or cost per thousand. People ask me, why is it CPM if it's cost per thousand? M is the Roman numeral for 1,000, so that's why the M came in there. So CPM, cost per thousand, it's going to be a little higher on Instagram than Facebook these days, because there is a bigger audience on Facebook than what there is on Instagram. Also on Facebook, there's lots of different places where ads can show. Instagram's really just got Reels, Stories, and the feed. And it's the only places where ads can really show. Facebook's got about 16 or 17 different places. So it's a little easier to serve those ads to the Facebook environment rather than to the Instagram environment. Organic reach has become very difficult for small businesses to achieve, not just on Instagram, but on Facebook as well. It's actually become really difficult, and a lot of people have given up on it, and they just say, look, I'm never going to reach people that way. I would look at it this way. Don't give up until you've tried Reels and put a really good, strong effort into it. Now, the making of Reels, I know a question came up after between the broken down version of this and today, is the problem with Reels is they do take more effort. They do take more effort to make. Now, you can alleviate some of that effort by making them in something like Canva. Canva has lots of templates for Reels. They'll help you to make it much more easily. So if you just go to Canva and go new and Reels or TikTok, then it'll bring up the format, the vertical format, and give you lots of templates you can use for it. You can record your voice into it. You can upload video into it, your photos, your product photos in there. That could be a good place to start. There are some transitions between screens. Like, for instance, you'll probably notice if I put this screen back up here, if I go backwards, it does like a bit of an effect, and I'll go forward again. It does like a pull across kind of effect. You can have those kind of effects running with your photos and videos on Reels in Canva as well. So that's probably a good place to start, is to try and do it in Canva. So what do we do on our posts and Reels to get noticed? What are the things we have to do that will make those things get further than what they normally would? Because frankly, most of the Reels we're going to make are probably going to be as boring as the feed posts that we're making that are not getting much reach. So how do we do this? What's the kind of stuff that's in there? And what we've found that works really well with Reels, and the same goes for TikToks too, is videos about how I make the things that I make. I follow a couple of people. There's a guy who's a florist, AC Floral Studio in Madrid. And if you look him up on Instagram, he does the most stunning floral arrangements based upon themes. So it could be a Disney princess theme. It could be a Stranger Things theme. Take a TV show or something popular that's around at the moment, or a movie, and he'll do a floral version of that. And it goes sort of not just there, but he'll go behind the scenes of how he goes shopping for his flowers on the flower markets in Madrid, how he then puts those together, what are the accessories that he uses, all that kind of thing. So it's a really interesting look at behind the scenes of what a florist would do. A day in the life of me is a little bit more of a, if you've got a service business and you don't really have something which is a physical product, you can go, here's my flowers, here's my soy wax candle, here's my pottery, then you might want to do, well, a day in the life of me would be, here's what I do every day. And this is, follow along to see what that is. So a day in the life of me could be me getting up in the morning, pretending to get out of bed, go and making my coffee, then moving into my studio where I might be recording something. So recording a photo of me recording something or something like that, where you're actually getting someone to peek inside what the behind the scenes of your life is like, particularly if you're someone who's very confident in front of cameras and has a process that people don't quite understand, because they, like my mum, don't really understand what I do. So that sort of thing, a day in the life of me, probably something that I could do well. Bit of a reality show of your life, but in 30 seconds. So that's the kind of things that work well in Reels, as well as what I do and how it relates to something topical. This is a really good way to go about it because, excuse me, because if it's already a topical thing that's being talked about, let's just say it could be like a cricket test match, then if you can somehow relate to that with your business in some way, shape, or form, then you're not just relating to people who relate to you, you're relating to people who relate to that cricket match. Or it could be a piece of news. Say, for instance, it might be what's really happening at the moment. I think we're going into festival season. So a lot of festivals that come up in spring, you might be talking about festivals, and you might tie in, it might be even something seasonal. Mother's Day, for instance. You can tie something in that you do into Mother's Day, not just, here's my Mother's Day sale, get 50% off when you buy two or more of the same thing. It's not that. It's more of a case of, what is it about Mother's Day? What does it mean to you? And how does that tie into what you do with your business? So I could say, for instance, one of the great driving factors I have in mind is my mum believes in me as a human being, but doesn't believe in me as a business owner. It's one of those really funny things where she always thinks that I do better when I'm just an employee because, I was an employee for 13 and a half years with a company and I was very happy doing that until I wasn't. And I wanted something more. So she's someone who reminds me of, the fact that it drives me because I want to prove her wrong, make her proud of me and prove her wrong at the same time by being a success in business. Now that could be something that's topical towards Mother's Day. With Mother's Day approaching, you're talking about the 5 things that my mother taught me that have helped me to become better at business these days. So that's the kind of thing that you could put in there as what I do and how it relates to something topical or to something seasonal, of course. So that's with the topics of your reels. We're moving on to YouTube now. YouTube is not often thought of as social media because isn't it just a place where we go and watch videos? Well, it kind of is. And it kind of isn't because there's a thing called YouTube Shorts. And I was mentioned this earlier. It's basically YouTube's version of Reels on Instagram and TikToks. So short format videos in the vertical mobile phone format so that you're not going to be at that same size as the as the wide YouTube ones that we're used to watching. This is stuff that's designed to be watched on vertical on a mobile phone. They're currently getting massive big views and can be really useful if you want to do something like previewing something that's a more full length video you're doing. So for instance, let's just say you've done a full length video on YouTube and Facebook. It's about 20 minutes long, and it's you showing people how to do a certain thing, or you're teaching people how to do a certain thing. What you can use shorts for, and the same with TikToks and Reels, is to use them as a preview or as a teaser for the longer piece of format that you've got, which fits into that whole know, like, trust thing that we do in marketing. We want people to know who we are, we want people to like who we are, and then we want them to trust us. But they won't trust us until they like us, and they won't like us until they obviously know us. So all these different kinds of productions on social media fit that flow from know to like to trust. So we start with a know. We get noticed on things like Reels and YouTube Shorts. Then what we want to do is use those to point to something bigger and longer because we don't trust someone necessarily by watching what they do on social media because anyone can make the highlight reel of their life. Like over on the left hand side here, in this particular screen that I'm showing at the moment, let me put it up there. There we go. So you've got this family here. So this family on the left-hand side look perfect. They're pretty. They're beautiful. They got the perfect smiles and everything like that. The problem is in there is that we know that that's just the highlight reel of their life. That's not really who they are. It's not really what they're like. It's not really even the kind of people they are. So what it is, it's more of a case of they are, they're trying to be someone that they're not. And the problem with trying to be someone that they're not is that you don't trust them. I wouldn't buy anything off those people because I don't really trust them because they're too perfect, right? So I might see that and get to go, oh yeah, I like them maybe, but do I trust them? No, I don't. What we need for trust is longer format content. Longer format content like a longer video, a podcast episode, a blog post, a how-to guide on the website, any of those sort of things help someone to be much more trusted, I think, rather than when you've got people who are all just being fake, trying to be liked, but not actually doing the hard work of trying to be liked. So one of the things we need to do when it comes to doing these reels and doing any videos on YouTube at all, particularly on YouTube and the longer format stuff, is that we need to make sure that we are picking a style of video and sticking to it. Now, this person on the front here is, her name is Charlotte Dobre. She has a particular style of presentation that she uses, which is very goofy. She does a lot of stuff where she's commenting on other things that are happening on the internet. So she might go, here's a look at a whole bunch of bridezillas that you're going to love, or here's a look at a whole bunch of Karens that are the too entitled and trying too hard to do their thing. So they'll be the kinds of things that she'll be doing, are the kinds of things that are really important to people who like to follow trends online. So she does a lot of comments of that. So what she does, she chooses her style, which is that kind of video, and that's all she does. She doesn't do any other kinds of videos just that particular kind of video, which allows her then to go, okay, I can get really, really good and consistent by doing this one thing. And having watched her for probably about 5 years now, she's gone from living in Vancouver to living in Toronto. She's changed her apartment. She's now done up a room which is dedicated for her studio for her daily videos, and she does a video at least every day of the week, which is something she has to do to keep relevant. Over 1 million followers and subscribers on YouTube, so she's put a lot of effort into this. But what she's done is kept consistent. So you need to choose her style. So what you do is you basically put forward what your style of presentation is, what kind of videos you're producing, and keep producing that. And if it doesn't work straight away, eventually it will. Eventually people will warm to that format, or they'll just get used to that format, and then they'll move on from there. So that's one of the first rules. One of the second rules is that you can have a kind of video that's all about having deep knowledge about a particular topic. So for instance, you might be a massive fan of Star Wars, the Mandalorian show, right? So you can always talk about that and have deep knowledge about that topic. Or you might have deep knowledge about AI tools, or you might have deep knowledge about people who are always in the news, such as Elon Musk, in the case of just some geezer who's doing this video about Elon Musk being the world's smartest idiot. So there's lots of things you could do that you've got particular knowledge on. So just think about what it is you have a lot of knowledge on, and that's pretty much what you could base your whole YouTube persona around. So you could go, I'm going to be this particular person on YouTube. I'm going to present this particular way on YouTube. That's the way I'm going to do it. So that could be what you want to do. You might want to have a particular topic that you want to speak on more than any other. So the kind of videos on YouTube that work better than all the others are pretty much how-to videos. Think about it. How many times you've gone into YouTube and gone, how do I do this? And you'll come into YouTube and get a video that adequately explains, or quite well explains, how to do that. So that's when you're trying to do the whole, okay, I'm getting this, I'm understanding this. What I'm trying to do is to produce things that people need instructions over. Now, the problem with the how-to videos is that pretty much everything that anyone's ever tried to do, there's about 15,000 videos for it now, because everyone's trying to get those views. So that might not be the first place you want to go. What it is, the first place you might want to go is, say, for instance, into the what I've noticed. So the what I've noticed one is an observation. So a lot of YouTubers who have a lot of comments to make. So it could be anyone from, some train wrecks like Gabby Hanna, through to, I'm trying to think of someone else who does a lot of this, but I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, who they have actually developed quite a personality online. And that personality online that they've got is someone who is all about a certain kind of observation they make of life, like funny observations, or they might be critical observations, or they might be critiques, or a guy who I follow called Building Beautifully is a guy who's in Sydney, and he basically he comments upon public transport systems, the town planning. He's a town planner, so he concentrates on the town planning aspect of Sydney and how it works and doesn't work, and what it could do better, and what are the infrastructure projects. And I follow him because I really enjoy it, because I think he's got a lot of deep knowledge about that. So he does a lot of what I've noticed about the Sydney metro system, for instance, and how it's under construction at the moment, and where it falls short, and where it needs to be filling a lot of gaps. Another area you might want to look into is how I think differently. So you have an opinion about a particular topic that may be very different to what others people's are. So that could be very useful in areas like complementary medicine, alternate thinking. It could be conspiracy theories if you really want to go down that rabbit hole. But there's things that help you to think differently to other people. So there's assumptions that people will make around the world and around a particular topic that you think, no, I think differently to that. So I'm going to build a channel on YouTube that's full of that kind of stuff. These three things are the areas that work the best. So I'll go through those again. The how-to videos are kind of like a staple of what's on YouTube. The what I've noticed videos, which is commentary on what's going on in the world today or in your life, that works well. How you think differently. So might say contrarian thinking also does well on YouTube too. So have a look at those as different areas you can do as we move into LinkedIn. Now, I'm not gonna lie. LinkedIn is my favorite of all of these platforms, simply because number one, it gets more organic reach than most of the others for less effort, and plus, second, it's business related. I'm a business to business guy. I sell my products and services to businesses, so it makes sense that I would be really into a platform like LinkedIn, which is very much about businesses. So telling personal stories has become a really big thing on LinkedIn. So this guy Ash Rathod, who has vitiligo, which is where people with darker pigmented skin tend to lose that pigmentation, so the melanin doesn't get produced in certain parts of their skin. So you can see in his face and his hands that he's got very large white patches on his skin where the melanin is no longer being produced. But he talks in terms of the things that he's gone through, including when he first started to have his skin color change, through to some of the things where he will say, I've been shaped by all the people I've read about on social media. So therefore, I don't want to say it's a bad thing. I actually want to say it's quite good. And then there's other places where he'll give pieces of life advice to do with his business journey. He's very much into what called personal branding. And Ash is very much he's one of the leading people in the world when it comes to personal branding. People from all over the world get him to help them out with personal branding. As someone else does personal branding as a part of what I do, I looked at someone like Ash, and I'm quite in awe of what he's able to achieve and what he's been able to do and how he's been able to spread that around. So he's from London in the UK, and he is, it just has his knack of telling personal stories and sharing a lot of vulnerability about himself. He's not scared to put himself down. He's not scared to say when he's made mistakes, but he's also not scared to admit when he's got a great idea that's really good. That handsome chap looks familiar. You also get what's called creator mode. Creator mode on LinkedIn is the ability for you to be not just someone who posts and reads, but someone who produces very frequent content that people want to follow. So in this case, at the time I did this screenshot, I have 1,425 subscribers. I've got 1,510, I think it is, since I did that screenshot like really, really recently. It grew very quickly all of a sudden. And this is my Saturday Sprint email newsletter, which is also a LinkedIn newsletter. So I've got about 11,500 people on my email newsletter subscriber list. And I thought, what if I could get some more people to that list by putting this also out, the same newsletter on LinkedIn to be delivered? So what happens that these 1,500 and so people who are subscribing to my newsletter, the Saturday Sprint, on LinkedIn, get a notification on Saturday mornings when that comes out. Now, why Saturday morning do I choose that? Yeah, because it just seems to work for me. Would it work better if it's another day? Maybe, but people tend to be a lot busier than on other mornings than they are on Saturdays. Saturday tends to be a little bit more chilled for a lot of the people that I'm trying to reach. So I tend to get really good open rates, probably around about 25% of open rate on the Saturday, and then I get another like 10% on Sunday, and then I get another 25% on Monday when everyone gets back to work. So most, like the majority of my opens happen on a weekend. The same thing happens with this on LinkedIn, is that I get a few of them on Sunday, but usually by Monday when people come in, go through their notifications and see what they've missed, that's when I'll get the rest of them. So it's a reason why I do that. Now, I do it because people respond to it, people read it, and people are getting to get a bit of more of an idea about who I am. Because of that, what I mentioned before, that know, like, trust thing. So the know thing, they get to know me on social media. They get to like me because I'm producing something constantly for them. So I'm in their lives a bit more, and I'm a bit goofy, and I like to sort of be a bit dumb and self-effacing with what I'm doing. It's quite endearing. But then on the other end, there's something that's long format like a newsletter. It helps them to trust me because I'm letting them into a piece of my life, giving them some stuff that I might have been successful at or have failed at. So then they think, oh, he even admits to what he's failing. That gives me a reason to trust this guy and like him that little bit more. Because after all, wouldn't we prefer it if people admitted their errors rather than just trying to hide them? The other thing that works really well on posts when it comes to LinkedIn is photos of yourself. Strangely enough, selfies work. It's kind of like what it was on Instagram many years ago and Facebook. You take a photo of yourself and people react to that. This guy, Steve Ware, works in mindfulness. So it's what we used to call meditation, but it's the de-religionized version of meditation. So in mindfulness, he is talking a lot about what we don't realize in mindfulness, what our brain does, how our brain tricks us and lies to us, and how to move past that sort of monkey brain thing that's going on, where we want to get past into a way of a lot more silence and peace. And he talks at length about that sort of thing. He also talks about who are the people he works with. He got called an IBM and was working with IBM in the UK on helping their teams to be more productive through mindfulness as well. So he tells a lot of stories about that. So the photos of yourself, as well as the stories about yourself, are what things that work really, really, really well on LinkedIn. They're things that seem to work all the time. The other thing that works really well at the moment is what we call document carousels. I call them slidey, swipey things. Basically, they're a PDF that you load up into a post on LinkedIn, and people on mobiles can swipe through those pages like it's like a book, or it could be on a desktop. You just click on an arrow and it goes to the next page. This guy Niall is a young fella who has a lot of strategies. He talks a big game, got a big following, but he hasn't got much of an actual track record. I've kind of looked into him and I've thought, oh yeah, he's kind of faking it till he makes it. Um, nice guy though, and does some really nice carousels. I've done a few myself, which are really good, that sort of tell a story about how I overcame something, or how I failed at something, or how I succeeded at something. That helps people to understand what they in an easy to read format, how to do something, or how to learn a framework or a strategy of some description. So there's a lot of that going on LinkedIn at the moment. Some of it's overdone. Some people like we do a bit of it and then we pull back a bit from it because people either like it or hate it, a bit like polls. So that's the sort of stuff that I can say safely that this stuff is working really well on LinkedIn at the moment. So here's a bit of a rundown of the kind of topics you can talk about, or the formats of those topics you could talk about in LinkedIn. So we start off with asking a few questions. The first one is, what can I teach? Now that's teaching someone with what I can teach of, you know, what's knowledge that you have that they don't have, basically. So you can teach them how to do something. You can teach them a life lesson. You can teach them about something technical, something that's very, very much about your industry or the way you do things. That's a very highly educational post. So that kind of thing works really well. Then the second question I'd ask is what I've noticed, or what have I noticed? So what have I noticed is an observation. So just like in that YouTube type I was talking about before, what have I noticed is saying, well, here's a story of something that I noticed today. Now that ties into what I do for a job. So what I noticed as I went across the internet, went to this particular website today, is that things on there just weren't working. I click on things, they won't work. I go down there and try to do a bit of feedback. It wouldn't work either. I wasn't quite sure what's going on. And then I just eventually gave up, which kind of gave me a bit of a lesson about websites. When we overcomplicate websites and put too many things in them, things start to break. And when things start to break, the problem is then that we start to go elsewhere. So that would be a story that I go, okay, I noticed this today, and this is what it brought me back to as a life lesson or a business lesson or a technical lesson or whatever it is that we want to talk about. The third one then is how I think differently. So this is where we were talking about the folks that might be contrarian, that might have a different way of thinking about very common things. So how I think differently is your chance to write something about, this is what people usually do in this situation, or this is what people usually think is right in this situation. I think differently, and this is what I think. So you're actually going to not so much slam down what other people think. You're just going, hey, I know that most people, when they want to approach going shopping, they want to build a list and all that. But for me, shopping's a time when I get away from my house, get away from my desk, and becomes a bit of a timeout. So I don't want lists like I have at my workplace. I don't want to be strategy in a supermarket like I am. I want to have a bit of time to just sort of explore, see what's new. I don't buy things willy-nilly, but I like to at least have a bit of time in the supermarket to enjoy it. I actually quite like supermarket shopping myself. So that might be something I would do as a think differently thing. So it's where you say, for instance, if you work in a complementary therapy and you say, oh, people say that when you get this particular disease that you should do this, 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 and this. And I said, while they are important and you should do them, there's some other things you might want to do for your overall health and well-being as well. So you're not necessarily slamming down what others think. You might be adding to it, or you might be saying, hey, I want you to think of it from a slightly different perspective of this. So that's the third one. The fourth one then is all about what can I present as a list. Some people call them listicles. Some people call them clickbait. It could be something like the 3 reasons why I was able to succeed where other people weren't, or the 5 things I wish I hadn't done when I first started up my business. So they're little lists of things that are to do with you, what you can teach, what you have, that's formatted as a list. So it's a little bit of what can I teach? It could be a little bit of what I've noticed and a bit of how you think differently, but presented as a list of, say, the top 3, the top 4, the top 5 things about what I did. So what can I present as a list is pretty much a list of top 5, 10, that kind of thing. The last one is how this outcome happened. So how this outcome happened is telling a story backwards. It's saying that I'm going to start with this happened. This outcome happened. Okay, I made an extra $2,000 this week. This is how I did it. So you start off with the end, and then you work back and go this, and you draw back through that list of things that you did to get there. Not so much a list; it doesn't have to be that, but what it can be. I made $2,000 extra this week. I'm going to share with you now how I did that. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It may not work for you, but it certainly worked for me this week. I'm hoping next week I'll make $3,000 extra dollars. So it could be something like that, where you're talking about what happened, whether it was good or bad, and then how that then became this big issue. So when you want to be able to draw on that kind of experience, you want to be able to draw on that particular kind of thing, well, then you need to be able to have experiences that you can draw back on. So when you're looking at how this outcome happened, remember, it's always start from the end, come back to the beginning. So start from the end. So what the outcome is, the failure, the success, the outcome, and then go back to the beginning and start the story of how that actually happened. Right, TikTok. That's another big dog in the room, isn't it? It's probably the area that most of us as little businesses are most scared of in social media, because all we see is beautiful young people dancing. And let's face it, TikTok is a little bit about thirst traps. If you're young and good looking and you've got a great body and a great smile and a great face on you, that tends to be what TikTok's all about. Really good looking people doing really, cool things that show themselves off. So quite often you find that people just go on TikTok basically comparing themselves to others. It doesn't have to be that though. So what we find is a lot of other stuff on TikTok which gets a lot of attention too. So let's take a look at what's happening right now on TikTok. Basically short format videos that are all around trends, popular songs, and current topics. So the trends could be everyone's baking sourdough at the moment. So here's my attempt at baking sourdough, or the little trick that makes my sourdough rise just right. Or it could be a trend that's something like everybody's really into Hello Kitty again. I thought Hello Kitty was gone, but no, Hello Kitty's back again. So here's my favorite Hello Kitty gear. And that sort of thing. Then it could also be around popular songs. So popular songs could be, they're usually listed and recommended to you to create your TikToks with that popular song as a background. The reason why popular songs reach so well is that if there's a particular song that's used in a lot of really, really common TikToks, that particular song, then you can see what other people have done with that song in their TikTok. So there's a great big list. And you go, click on that song, and I'll show you all of the different popular things that people have done with that song. So if you watch one, generally the song and the trend go hand in hand. So if someone's using a song that also fits in with a particular trending kind of thing, then you'll be able to see both those things. So if you like or are entertained by a particular thing, like for instance with me, there's a particular breed of dog called Borzois. They're a Russian breed of dog. Originally, only the aristocracy used to own them, so they're quite endangered there for a while during the communist era. There's very few of them here in Australia, but there was a bit of a trend with Borzois going on, which was using a bit of a song from Miss Piggy from the Muppet movie, singing, "I will do this for you, let me do this for you." And it was the idea that the Borzoi has such a long snout that it's able to reach things that others aren't, like the bottom of a Pringles cylinder, or they can get down the drain and get those things you've lost down the drain because they've got those long, thin noses. It was a bit of a ridiculous thing and became a bit of a meme and a theme and a popular trend, but it went with a song as well. So that would be a perfect example of that kind of one. And the third one is then those current topics. So what are people talking about that's newsworthy? It could be what Kim Kardashian wore to the Met Gala ball. It could be any of those things, and people either talking about it, commenting on it, or mocking it, basically. So mocking those kind of things. So look, you may or may not find something for your business in there. A lot of people try to bring their business onto YouTube. I've seen a florist here in Darwin who's constantly trying to be relevant by dancing to popular tunes whilst in their florist studio. They haven't done as much of it lately because it wasn't working. No one was watching it, because what it was coming across as is, oh, here's a Generation Xer who's trying to look relevant on a cool thing, but it's actually looking really cringe. And that's exactly what it did. It just got really cringy. It wasn't working for them. So they stopped doing it. So that's just a warning that if you try to get on those trends as a business and link it back to your business, it could be very cringy. What works changes so quickly on TikTok. You just need to be on TikTok watching what's happening in order to understand what's trending, what's popular, what songs are happening, that kind of thing. It's not a hard and fast rule on TikTok. It's you're always on with TikTok. You always have to be there knowing what's happening, because just when you think you've handled a particular style of short form video, and then a new trend comes along and completely blows you away. I want to talk about Twitter, even though I think Twitter is kind of on a bit of a downward slide, particularly since Elon Musk bought it at the end of last year. Last year, he's kind of like taken an axe to a lot of it, and it's become a bit of a train wreck, to be honest. It's a place where a lot of very, very unhealthy conversations are going on. Where you fit your business into that, that's going to be a strange one. I'm still trying to explore Twitter a bit, because I think there's some value in it still, because there's still 300 million people on it that are active users. So I want to find the place where I can fit myself. Basically, this is what I've started to do. It hasn't been successful yet, but hopefully it may be. I got Twitter Blue, which cost me $13 a month. Now, you would think that the little blue check mark, which used to be meaning that you were someone who was significant and that Twitter thought you were important. Now you can buy it for $13 a month. The reason I bought it for $13 a month is because it makes my stuff discoverable to people outside the very few people who follow me. The second thing I need to do is follow lots of people. So I'm going in there looking for people who are in that sort of interest area that I am. And then I've got to comment on lots of stuff. Now, I haven't been doing that yet. I haven't got to that point just yet. But then you build a following through that and post interesting short form content. So short written content, short video content can go in there as well. Or it could be just image based content. I haven't yet worked out what's working well on Twitter just yet, but I'm thinking that for the moment, I'll give it a go and see what I can make work. And perhaps in 3 to 6 months' time, I'm going to do a follow up on that to see how I did with Twitter when I put a little bit of effort into it. I know that last year when I put some effort into LinkedIn, I went from 10 times the following than what I had when I began, and with nearly 3,000 times the amount of engagement that I had at the beginning of last year. So maybe if I do the same thing with Twitter, you never know. It may just work. The kind of stuff that seems to work on Twitter that I've noticed, though, is current topics of interest. A lot of news, a lot of very contentious and controversial stuff tends to work a lot. What I've seen with other people is that participating in conversations has also been a really important way for them to be able to get more out of Twitter, and adding expertise to existing conversations. So going to where people are talking about something that you know lots about and adding your 2 cents worth in seems to get a bit of work in there too. People tend to go, oh, he knows or she knows what they're talking about. I'll follow her or him. So that's Twitter. Twitter is a bit of a hard one. So what else should you be doing? What are the things outside of outside of social media should be doing apart from just doing those things? Well, I think if you're a service-based business, networking is still incredibly important. Going along to BNI chapters if you can afford them, other local networking, LinkedIn local groups if you've got one in your town particularly, those can be very valuable things to go along to. Basically now, I run a networking organization here in Darwin, and that has been incredible for me to attract new clients and to attract new people. The problem with that is, though, that it takes time, and you need to be someone who is very good in front of people. I've tended to be pretty good at networking, but at the same time, I'm organizing the networking, so I have to be very good at it. So doing networking, I think, is a really interesting way for you to try and reach more people. I think it's incredible value in local businesses using letterbox drops. I don't think that's something which has gone away. I think letterbox drops are really good for people who have a local cleaning business, local lawn mowing business, dog washing business, dog walking business, house sitting business, any of those kind of things which appeal to people in a local area that are very physical, that require your physical presence. I think letterbox drops still get great results for that kind of thing. I don't think you necessarily have to have social media to make that work. What else works apart from that? Well, I think also you can look at the idea of retail businesses using demonstrations and targeted sampling. There's going out the front of your physical shop front and giving away stuff, giving taste tests, getting people to try things on, try on this jacket and let me take a photo for you for your Instagram. That kind of thing could be clever. Targeted sampling could be that you're sending very small samples of your fragrance, your skincare to people who seem to have an interest in it. Demonstrations at trade shows, demonstrations at shopping center kiosks. They're not that expensive, to be honest. You can get a kiosk for a weekend and it won't cost you a heck of a lot. It actually could be a really good way of doing that. Also, find that email marketing is still giving the best return on investment. And by that, what I mean is that email marketing for me, for the cost of what it does, is about, I think it's costing me about $60 a month to do my email marketing platform to 11,500 people. That dollar for dollar gives me more in terms of affiliate marketing links, which actually people click on and I get a cut of the revenue of that. That's more than pay for that every month. Like that pays that 3-4 times over just with those links. So that is a good investment for me. That gives me a return on the investment. What it also gives me then, that 11,500 people plus another, 1,000 and 1,500 or something on LinkedIn gives me a big audience that then gets used to my stuff, and they get used to me through that. They respond to my emails, they respond to my posts on LinkedIn, and they actually ask for me to give them a call, or they'll send me a private message or a private email asking for me to respond to them, give them a price, put in a quote. By far and above, email marketing for me is my biggest return on investment of all digital marketing stuff, well beyond what I get out of social media. And LinkedIn works really well for me as a business to business consultant. Not so much over on Facebook and Instagram. I also don't put a lot of effort into those, to be honest, because that's not where my people are. My people are on LinkedIn. They're very motivated. They're looking. They're in the hunt for people they want to work with. That's where they're most active, not really on Facebook and Instagram, where they tend to be relaxing. They tend to be interacting with the things they love in a personal life, not in their professional life. So that's a little bit about the things that I think are working particularly well. Where you can learn more about these many different platforms, they have their own learning platforms. So, for instance, Meta has what is called the Meta Blueprint. So, the Meta Blueprint is literally hundreds of self-paced lessons that last from anywhere from 2 minutes to 8 minutes to, I think the longest one I did was about 10 minutes, that teach you how to do things as a business on Facebook and Instagram. It gives you great tips, it gives you great how-tos, really simple to use. Just go to Meta Blueprint, just Google that, Meta Blueprint, and you'll find it straight away. And it links into your Facebook business account, and you can start to, excuse me, excuse me, you can start to work through the things that are relevant to what you want to learn on Facebook and Instagram. Second one I want to show you is YouTube Creators. So YouTube Creators is a place where you can learn everything you need to learn about how to create good stuff that people will want to watch on YouTube. So it's an account that you can go along, just Google YouTube Creators, and we'll show you there where it is. It's a great space to learn more about being a creator on YouTube. LinkedIn has LinkedIn Learning, which is its own thing. So you may, LinkedIn Learning usually costs you money, but there are free things on LinkedIn Learning about learning about LinkedIn. So you can go in there and learn it. I've got tons and tons of videos on my YouTube channel as well, which will teach you stuff about LinkedIn. TikTok, you can go to the TikTok Academy. Now, this is largely based on ads. But it does have some tips in there on learning how to get really creative as a business on TikTok as well. There's some really good tutorials, some really good hints and tips on what works and what doesn't work, particularly when it comes to the ads on TikTok. It'll show you how to get more out of your ads. But to be honest, ads are not really in the realm of us little tiny businesses because they start at about $3,000 a month. And I can't afford that. I can tell you that much. Flight School is Twitter's own learning platform where you can learn all about how to be a business on Twitter. So campaigns through ads, how to use videos to reach people further, what kind of conversation sparking you can do, and how to create new connections as a business that are going to help you to drive campaigns and sales and all that kind of thing. So there's plenty of stuff you can do on all of these different platforms that allow you to then get an idea of how they work, learn from straight from the horse's mouth. Really, if you want to know what's going on with Meta, why go to a Meta guru somewhere on a YouTube channel? Go to Meta themselves and learn what it is that they say is the stuff that works. I'd like to give you an offer now that's completely free and completely obligation free. I've got a mini course on how to write better content that includes better social media posts, better blogs, all that. It's delivered via your inbox over 5 weeks. So you get one short lesson every week for 5 weeks. I'm not going to upsell you anything. I'm not going to spam you. Whether you want to join my newsletter or not is up to you. But if you join this particular mini course, so you can get it through that link, stjames.link/write better. That's going to give you that free course that gets you to write in that format that I was talking about before. You know, those 5 things, the what can I teach? What have I noticed? That stuff. It gives you how to do that in much better detail so you can get a really good idea of how that works. So just find out that link, stjames.link/write better, and hopefully I'll see you over there. It's been a very, very big followed up course. I've got well over 1,000 people have done that course now for free, which has been amazing. Do you have questions? Do you like to have something else answered? Please do not hesitate to send me an email to dante@businessstation.com.au, or you can find me on any of those social media. Just look for my name, my email, my website. It's all right there. So thank you so much for joining me today and for taking time out of your day and your business and your busy lives to learn a little bit about what's working on on social media in 2023. And also, my apologies for that terrible live I tried to do where it just all fell apart. Hopefully, this has come through a whole lot better for you. My name is Dante St. James. I hope you have a fantastic week wherever you are in Australia. And I hope to not just hear from you soon, but to see you succeed as well. Here's my details before I go, and I'll see you again soon.